Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Black on Black Cinema. I'm your host Jay. I'm here with my co-host Micah
Hey.
and Tiara.
Hey.
All right, guys, we are back. Terrence is out this week, but he'll be back next week. This is episode 267, The Kitchen. This is, again, we mentioned on our previous episode, this is on Netflix. This is a film sort of in future-ish London about a area called The Kitchen, sort of a ghetto of sorts. And it's slowly being, all its residents are slowly being pushed out. Meanwhile, a guy is connecting with this young man who lost his mother, and they're all sort of caught up in the middle of this. This is actually co-written and co-directed by Daniel Kaluuya, so that's kind of interesting to see him on this side of the camera. So I'll go to Micah first. What did you think of this film?
I thought the performances from the two mains were very good. The guy who plays Izzy is a real piece of shit in this movie. I understand that it's by design. It worked. He was a real piece of shit in this movie. And I feel like, one knock on the movie is I feel like this kid wouldn't give Izzy as many chances as he gave him. My only other big issue with the movie, and look, this is just a me thing, right? I don't think this movie was meant to tell this story. I think it meant to tell the story it was supposed to tell, but I feel like the B plot, the actual world, is way more interesting of a concept to delve into than this relationship between this man and this boy. I appreciated it, but I feel like that story could have been the B story, and the A story could have been about, like, I want to know more about this world. I want to know more about this dystopian future where, no matter what timeline you're in, cops are still knocking down people's doors, and like, this is a future police state. That's inherently interesting to me, and I wish the movie kind of delved more into that and less into this relationship with this man and this boy. But if we're going to do that story, it was pretty decent. But like I said, the main guy's a piece of shit, and I don't think, if I was the child character, I would not have given this character as many chances as I wouldn't give Izzy as many chances as Benji did.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Tiara, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it was, so I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed like the messaging of it. And I think this movie is set in 2044, right? So definitely something that all of us could, live through. I agree that the world itself and like the differences between how people are living, I would have liked to see more of that. Because otherwise it almost felt like a short film to me, or like it could have been a short film. I think this was like an hour and 50 minutes long, and I felt like a little bit too long and didn't feel like a ton happened that I cared about. Like I know there was like the parts with like the activists and everything, but I don't feel like I needed to spend too much time with the back and forth there with Benji. I found that the like the messaging of like things that seem beautiful on the surface and seem like very futuristic on the surface are very cruel, right? So like the concept of death and how we process death felt so impersonable. Like that was something that I think really struck me. Like the concept of turning people into trees, which this is something I think people will talk about right now as like a way to kind of, live on in some capacity while being beneficial to the earth instead of just putting someone in a box and then letting them kind of like decompose. But
Right.
the way that it's portrayed in the movie, it still feels like cold and impersonable. Like you're telling someone, "Hey, your loved one died. Here's a little plant, and you can see them for as long as you want until we tell you that you can't see them anymore."
Right.
Um,
And then not tell you where they are planted.
not- and I was just like, "Damn, that's like I can't imagine someone telling me how to love or commemorate my loved one," which brings me to my next thing. Because the first thing I thought of when I started watching, I was like, oh look, it's life under Project 2025, and
Yeah.
and it makes me think about, like, and I hate to bring this back to voting, but one of the things that I have heard people say when it comes to not participating in the world, in your society, is that I'm always going to take care of mine. I'm going to take care of my family. But if there's one thing that I think this movie demonstrates, is that you're only allowed to take care of your family as well as your society allows you to. Because you had people like the guy and his daughter. Those two characters, I know they were side characters, but I thought about them a lot, because I'm thinking, like, this is a man who is trying to keep this happy presence in the world for his daughter when things are seriously fucked up. And I would have loved to see, like, how we got to that point. But it's like, at what point did it become normal for them to live that way? Because that probably just a generation or two prior, people were living like kind of like how we do now. And like the thought of like having to earn your living to something that's really basic as like Buena Vida is so dystopian, but it feels a lot closer to reality than we probably give it credit for.
Yeah, no, I actually agree with that on all counts. Yeah, the movie, I don't think it mentions it very specifically, but the idea is social housing has been eliminated, right, in this future, which is why these people were in the sort of dire straits that they're in. Look, I enjoyed the movie. By the way, the movie is starring, I didn't mention this, Kane Robinson and Jadea Bannerman as Izzy and Benji, respectively. Look, I like the movie. I actually think it's a cool concept film. I think it does a really good job of dealing with the issues of sort of the issues of housing. But I also agree with Micah's point of that's a way more interesting story than the sort of father-son relationship that's developing between Izzy and Benji. More on that later. What I do really like, though, is there is another overarching message of the story that I think is really good, which is you may want to abdicate your responsibilities, but you don't really get a say in that ultimately, right? And that is sort of reflected in the idea and the idea of like selfishness too. Like the Kitchener or Lord Kitchener, who is the sort of the radio personality of this ghetto. He said he has a comment, that sort of motto is, they can't stop we, and the only way they can stop we is if we start thinking of we as I, right? Which I think is a really good statement. Like it's a dope concept because they only survive together, and the second they see themselves as individuals and not a part of a community, that's when the community is destroyed, right? Which is a very good message, not just about housing, but about being a person in the world, and especially a poor person in the world. Like if you don't have community, you have nothing. And and also it's it's also a commentary on parenting. Just because you abdicate that responsibility doesn't mean you're not a father. Like you're still somebody's father. Whether you want to be or not, you're still somebody's father, right? If you have a kid, like you just are. Now you can choose how that looks to you, but you don't get to throw that away and just be like, well, I'm not anymore. Like that's not how that's not how the world works, right? So I did enjoy it. I think it's what I also like is because it's a sci-fi movie and it's sort of this dystopian future kind of setting, it allows an easy entry for people to be like, oh, it's a cool dystopian future movie. Let me check this out. And it's like, oh shit, there's like some real messaging here. So I appreciate that. It's a nice way to kind of get in on these things. And I think people need to see more movies like this. Like we don't do enough British films for my taste, because I think there's some really good stuff, especially Black British, films that deal with things like this. And so I was happy that this was as good as I was hoping it was. But I agree. Like the outside world and how they got there is way, way more interesting. So I think
the ending.
Yeah, and I actually
I really like that.
I like the ending. I mean, I'm sure people will have a problem with like not knowing what happens, but an ambiguous ending doesn't bother me. It allows me to realize that like you don't know everybody's full story. Like that's just kind of how life was. So yeah, I dug it. I thought it was good. And the principal actors are fine. I don't think anybody does a necessarily bad job. I feel like Kane Robinson is giving a very like I'm not going to raise my voice almost ever kind of performance. Like he's just coming in at a strong medium. But that's how the character is clearly written. So it's fine. So yeah, I enjoyed it. All right, let's get into it. The movie opens with Izzy, played by Kane Robinson. He's taking a shower, and it's clearly in the kitchen. There's there's one shower, maybe like one per floor or something like that. So he's got all of his neighbors banging on the door for him to get out of the shower, and he's just like taking his time because he doesn't really give a shit. And he's a very selfish guy. To Micah's point, like he's a bit of an asshole, and so he just takes his time and he's like getting himself ready for work, which is weird, right? Like that he has this like full-time job, like living in a place like this that is like feels like a homeless encampment almost, right? So it is kind of interesting. And then we see him like you can kind of tell that now it's a future world. Like he's got a mirror that's got like a touch screen on it and everything else. So it like has those elements to it, but also like you're just kind of living in squalor. And I
like science fiction like this because like
it's realistic.
When people it's realistic. When people think science fiction, they think Star Trek and spaceships and shit. And 30 years from now, it's not gonna be Star Trek. You know what I mean?
It's not going to be clean. Like that's what always sci-fi is. Like everything is pristine and we're all wearing silver bodysuits. Like, nah, it's just going to be like you're in kind of the same clothes you're in, but like, ooh, the iPads are better. Like, that's probably it.
Right. Think about like technology from 30 years ago, right? And then think about like microwaves. Hadn't really been a huge advancement in microwave technology in 30 years, right? Like you still have the same stuff that you normally have. It's just better.
Yeah.
And
by the way,
I like realistic sci-fi like that.
Right. By the way, air fryers, not that much of an improvement on like an oven. Okay. Like it is.
Right.
It's just a tabletop. Right. That's all it is. It's amazing. Is it?
Right.
So yeah, no, I agree. Like I kind of like a little bit of a dirty future world. And so, yeah, you see him, he's kind of, getting ready for work, and then he hops on his motorcycle and he heads to work. And then you kind of get a pull-out view of the kitchen, and it's, it's got tons of police drones around. And look, the CGI in some of this stuff is not the best, but it's because this movie is on a very tight budget. And I think that's okay. Like, you get the concept, so I'm not too, like, worried about it. We see Izzy, he's riding to work, and like as he drives out of the kitchen, he's into sort of main, kind of the mainstay of London, and it's all very nice and clean and, even more futuristic looking and everything else. But it's still like a regular city, right? Like there's no flying cars and shit. Like it's just people on motorcycles and bikes, and that sort of thing. And so he works at a place called Life After Life, which, to what Tiara was saying, is a place that when people die, I guess they use your body as compost to grow a plant. And that particular plant is your representative in the world after you die. And there are people, coming there to like, hey, like, what is this, like trying to buy a plot or whatever you want to call it.
This shit seems like a fucking scam.
They have this now.
Yeah.
This exists.
Yeah,
now.
I know. This is like buying a 1 foot buy 1 foot square plot of land in Scotland so that you can be called Lord. Like, get out of here, yo! Like, what the fuck? This is like buying. This is
you
like
should call me that.
buying the naming rights to a star. Remember
Yeah, that's
that
dumb.
shit?
Yeah, that's dumb. Fucking stupid.
And it's a scam that's clearly geared towards people who probably wouldn't be able to otherwise afford a funeral. Because I would bet if we got to see the outside world, they're probably still having traditional funerals. And the thing is, like, there are people who do believe in like not doing a traditional burial, but it's just another way of telling people that even in death, you are poor and you can only afford what you can afford. You can't even afford to do right by your loved ones as they pass. It's just yeah.
Yeah, look, I don't mind the idea of this. I don't like the idea of like you can't know where the tree is planted. Like that seems like the scam. Like I feel like they just take those trees and throw them in a ditch, and it's like yeah, whatever. We got their money. Look, I think it's utterly ridiculous that we put dead people in boxes that don't decompose, and then put those boxes in a big concrete box and bury it underground. That seems dumb to me. Like this just seems very stupid to me. But whatever. And they cost like $10,000. And you better just throw that person in a hole. Like just ashes to ashes, all that shit, right? It's in that.
I mean, but you can see like how they take people away. It's just they go into a little thing and then they're just gone. It just it feels like life after life. I think it's what place is called. Like, it just feels like they're rushing you through the grieving process.
Nah, they don't give a fuck. These people don't care.
Yeah,
like,
and that's what I'm saying. Like that's what I'm saying, right? Like you're taking advantage of people at their most vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
Like that's why you're not supposed to go. That's why you're not supposed to go. Casket shopping with, or you're supposed to bring someone with you that's a little detached, right? Because like charlatans and shit, they'll try to sell you some fucking $10,000 pine box when you don't need that. You know what I mean?
Be smart. Go on Amazon. They sell them on Amazon.
No, cremate me and then spread me.
My mother was like, cremate me, yo.
No. I want to be cremated. I'm saying if you want to buy a casket, they sell them on Amazon.
Right.
Yeah, and they're a lot cheaper.
Oh, really? What? Wait. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I didn't.
Yo, my mom bought my grandmother's casket on Amazon. Yes, and they will ship it directly to the fucking place. 100%. Yes.
Yo, we are this close to the kitchen. What kind of dystopian nonsense?
No, you want to hear the wild shit? She bought the same one they had at the fucking place that they tried to sell her, and it was like $2,000 or $3,000 less.
Wow.
Yes, you can go on Amazon. You look up casket. They got them right there. 100%.
Thanks, Jeff Bezos, I guess, or whoever owns Amazon now.
The person who was like running the funeral home, they were like, people buy caskets from Amazon all the time. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
He told you that? Okay.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, there you go. So if you want a casket, go to Amazon. So yeah, look, I don't trust this company. Like this is some terrible shit. It really does feel like they're like, are they gone? Cool. We've got a bunch of plants. Like I feel like they already have plants in the back, and they just throw your fucking loved one in a ditch, and they're just like, yeah. No, this is them. Here you go, and it's all the same. It's all plastic. They don't give a shit about you. So Izzy works there, and he's a salesperson, and he's got this buddy there, and they're taking a smoke break, which is weird because they're just like straight up smoking weed, like at work, which is wild. But that's what you do in the 2040s. And basically, Izzy is like, look, I'm gonna fuck about the kitchen. I'm trying to get out because he has put it sort of a reservation down on this other apartment in a nicer part of town that he's planning on moving into, right? And so he doesn't care about where he lives. It's just a means to an end. And he called it a shithole and everything else. Again, this point of him being completely detached from the community in which he lives in, right? While he is at work, he sees one of the funerals is coming up. and it's this woman, and he clearly recognizes her. So he goes down to one of the chapels to see her body, and he sees her son kind of there and mourning over her death. And we see in her son Benji, by the way. And so Benji, after the ceremony, he comes up and upstairs, and the lady from the company is like showing, oh, this is your mother. This is a plant that we definitely made from your mom, and you can come and visit her as much as you want for the time being, and then we're gonna ship her to a secret location, which is fucking weird. And so at that point, Benji corners Izzy because he saw him come into the chapel, and he's like, "Yo, do you know my mom? Like, what's the deal? Like, you know, tell me what you know about her or whatever." And he's like, "Yeah, I didn't know your mom." And then he's like, "Come on, dog, like, knock that shit off." He's like, "All right, I knew your mom." He's like, "Oh, you did? Did you know her sexually? Like, what's the deal?" I was like,
Wow.
like, you know, and I like because you get the like the very British shit. He's like, "Oi, like, relax, you know, like relax." And he basically tells the kid to fuck off, and then he hops on his bike and rides off, and then he comes back and he's like, "All right, you want to ride home?" Like, because he feels bad about it, and so he gives the kid a ride home. So yeah, I think it's a fine meeting. You know, it's a father-son meet cute, if you will. It's a fine meeting. You kind of get a kind of a lightness, but also like directness from Benji, just because he's kind of a kid going through shit by himself.
Well, yeah, like this kid is clearly distraught. This kid clearly, you know, hasn't grown up with a father. So any man that he thinks might know his mom is like, "Hey, are you my dad?" Right? Like, right. you know my mom, yo? Like, because he's a child, yo.
Right.
And this is what really affected me, because like I get Izzy. Izzy is such an extreme loner, and he's like the perfect like heel in wrestling, right? The perfect
Right.
bad guy in wrestling, where he is written to make you hate him, no matter
Right.
what. And it worked on me, man, because I felt nothing but
Derision.
empathy. I felt nothing but empathy for Benji, and throughout this entire movie, and even up through the ending, I wasn't all bought in on Izzy's redemption, but I don't know. We'll get to it.
All right, fair enough. So at this point, like once Benji gets home after Izzy dropped him off, he has a birthday present that's from his mom, and it's clearly like his birthday would have been just a couple days after she died, and he waits until exactly midnight to open it, and he opens it, and it's a bike. You can go regular, just a regular bike, and so he takes that and he heads over to the kitchen, and he's like trying to he's trying to find Izzy basically, and he ends up running with this group of kids who are, they just kind of like, they're just hood kids, like just up to shit. Like they're not necessarily bad kids, but they're just kind of up to shit. And they get together and they're like partying, having a good time. They're trying to knock down drones on the roof, which I mean that looks like a good time. If I'm being, like
I was a little nervous though.
You need a better weapon.
The way that they filmed Benji's turn and with the drone, like in I guess like in the faraway shot, I thought that the drone was going to like try to shoot at them.
I'm surprised it doesn't have guns on it, to be honest.
Right. I was like, oh, it's just for surveillance?
It's over there. It's over there.
That's true.
They don't really do guns like that. If it was America, all them little pickaninny niggas would be dead on that roof.
Yeah, it would have had Hellfire missiles. Like, why do you need that? You never know.
I was, and this is how you know that we live in the U.S. because like when the cops were like kind of running through the streets. I was like, oh, they must have guns. I was like, oh, just tasers. I was like, oh, okay.
I mean, this
well,
is not that bad.
I got stun sticks, like whatever. You know, I got a crowbar. The fuck?
Yeah, we can have this fight. Like, you're not going to win. Yeah, it is hilarious to know, like, oh, they're not just going to shoot everybody. Oh, right. I forgot where we are. Even in the future, these guys have still kept it together. Amazing. But they have knives, right? Isn't that the argument from the U.S.? So yeah, they're kind of running with these. He's kind of running with these guys. He knocks down a drone, his first attempt, and they all are like, "Yeah, are you with us?" Like, that's awesome. And again, they're just being rebellious teenagers. Then he eventually go ahead.
I got to tell you, this movie really subverted my expectations. Right? Any other movie, you know, he would fall in with these delinquents. They would do something, leave him holding the bag or whatever.
Yeah.
And and then he'd be all alone, and then Izzy would come back and be like, you know what? I'm gonna be a father figure. Nah, yo, this movie didn't do that. And these, you know, these little juvenile delinquents, I actually really wanted him to stay with them, yo. like wow. I kind of did, man. Like, because they were a found family, and and you know, you, especially in a world like this, like you can't be on your own, and you know, when you can't look to adults, like that's when kids got to band together, man. And I don't know, man. This movie was different. This movie was different in a pleasant way.
I do like that. Like, he should have stayed with them.
That's because Izzy's arc was like, it was a flat line or a straight line, and then it did this.
Yeah, it then it hit a speed bump.
That's still an arc. It's a tiny one.
I mean, it's a tiny arc. I mean, it's like the arc. If you squint really hard, the arc is there. I mean, but even then, right? Like, but also with the delinquents or the activists, I couldn't root against them because one, we didn't necessarily see them doing wrong, and also I'm like, I mean, we did see them do some stuff. I was like, okay, well, all right, well, I get it.
But then you're right. But then you put that in context.
You're like,
and it's like, I mean, you shouldn't be breaking in and harassing those people, but like
at the same time, y'all kind of had it coming. Like,
yeah, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I like. So that whole scene with the delinquents later on, I was like, let them go.
Like, right, like, all right. If anything, I found myself yelling at the screen, going like, "Take off the mask, boy! You running with the mask on? Take it off! Take it off!"
Yeah, don't be. Learn how to do crimes properly. Jesus Christ, it's not that hard. So yeah, look, he finds Izzy, and Izzy is like, he's like, "Oh, were you looking for me?" And at this point, my wife is at the dining room table, so she's not watching the movie alongside me. She goes, "Oh, did I hear Idris Elba in this movie?" I was like, "No, you're mixing up your Black British men's voices. You're being a racist." She was like, "Yeah, whatever." So
at least she identified it as a British accent. My wife swears up and down that Australian people are British.
No, come on.
Like, they don't sound anything alike. What the fuck?
One are people who are properly educated, and the other is an island of jailbirds and criminals. Like, duh, it's a penal colony. Somehow they just started churning out really good-looking people for some reason. So yeah, it's then the place gets raided by cops, and like everybody starts banging on pots and pans. They start doing their best local go-go music impression to warn the other the other people that the kitchen is being raided.
That's why it's called the kitchen, by the way. That's why it's called the kitchen.
Oh, that's the reason.
They take their pots and pans, as you know, and they clang them as a warning.
Yeah, I like the name The Kitchen. I personally would have gone with more of a Judge Dredd style name, like Nigga City 1. Like that works. But either way, it's fine. So they start making go-go music, and everybody goes inside, and like that's like if you're basically caught by these police or private security, I couldn't quite tell who they were. They would basically drive you out of the kitchen. What you come to find out is the kitchen is private property that these people have just moved into because they don't have anywhere else to go, and they're just basically squatting in this massive area of like apartments.
Right.
Which in the beginning you do not get that impression. It's just like, oh, these are just a poor part of town. But no, this is like basically a homeless encampment, right? Just like a fancier one, right? And by the way, the entire time you get this Lord Kitchener person who is talking on the radio, like kind of speaking throughout the kitchen and kind of playing music and giving sort of positive, affirmations and that sort of thing, which I think is pretty cool. And he was playing some pretty good music, incidentally.
We're not there yet. I thought we were at the part where they were at the club.
Oh no, not yet. Then Izzy takes Benji along with him to work. He's like, "Look, this is how you're gonna pay your pay your dues. Basically, is I need you to go with me to work, and then I'm gonna ask you while I'm talking to a customer, like, hey, you just lost your mom. What do you think of this process?" And you're supposed to be like, I like the fond farewell package. It was great, and now I'm with my mom forever, and everything's good. But of course, Benji super fucks that up, and he cannot remember the name of the package and all of this when Izzy is talking to this white dad and his daughter. I assume the mom died. And so he fucks it up, but Benji kind of saves himself. He goes, he kind of gives like a really heartfelt response, which is like, oh, I got the whatever package, and he kind of screws it up. He goes, but I miss my mom every day, and it's nice to like kind of come here and see her. And I think that's really what sold, or at least you get the impression that sold the couple on the idea. They're like, oh, okay, this is not bullshit. Like this kid actually is going through this, and it made him feel a little bit better. So there you go. From there, they head to the club because Benji's like, we don't do anything fun. Like this sucks. Like I want to go do something. And Izzy takes Benji to this club. It's sort of in the basement or what have you of the kitchen, much like the basement sex club in that Tyler Perry movie. It's just right there. Like you just right downstairs. No admission needed. So they go down and look, it's the future, but apparently even in the 2040s, niggas are just doing roll bounce down in the basement. So
and playing Candy 60 years later and knowing the words.
Yeah, Cameo somehow lives on all the way through the 2040s. Look, a good song is a good song. Like, what can you do?
I'm so glad we're not losing recipes.
We're not losing recipes.
Yeah, you don't lose recipes to good food. You lose it to junk food, which is why, Lil Uzi Gat or whatever the fuck is not going to be around in 2044.
Little Uzi Gat. Nigga,
I don't know.
You old.
I don't know. I don't know.
Lil Uzi Vert?
Lil Uzi Vert.
Whatever. Is he still around?
Yeah, he's still around.
I don't know.
Yeah, he has that. He did that song with Drake,
right?
Nicki Minaj. Right? He has the one where she used the like Baltimore club beat. I like that song.
Is Nicki Minaj gonna be around in 30 years?
No.
Yes.
No. Look. We're gonna upset people in the comments. I understand that. Nicki Minaj is not that great of a rapper. Sorry, I'm old. I'm sorry.
Her music.
The Barbs can come after you. That's all I know. Yeah. That's all I know.
Please subscribe.
Nicki Minaj.
Her older music will probably be around. So yeah, I'm gonna say yes.
I'm gonna go with Monster will be around because it's the only thing I ever cared about that she did.
Will Kanye West be around in 30 years or 20?
I don't know. Are we allowing Nazis to be around in 30 years? That's a good question.
Sure. Vote people.
Yeah.
We can kick them to her.
Yeah, get that guy the fuck out of here. No, I don't know. I mean, it will be interesting to see what music is like elevator music in like 20 years. Like, is this Everybody by Nicki Minaj? Like, what is playing right now? Like,
I mean, were they doing the electric slide too?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
Isn't Back That Ass Up like 20 years old?
that's weird. Yo, that's weird. Yo, that's a weird thing.
No, it's not 20 years old, Micah. It's 24 years old.
24 years old. Yeah, man. Like,
Yeah, he did. Didn't he just do a Tiny Desk performance on NPR?
Yes.
That's crazy.
so look, you never know. Because look, if you'd have asked me 24 years ago, is Back That Ass Up gonna, stand the test of time?
Live on.
I would have told you no. So look, I could be totally wrong, guys.
And this movie is only set 20 years into the future.
Yeah,
Yo, but the fact that like Cameo is barely music of our generation. Like, it's barely music of our generation.
It's before my time.
Yes, of course.
yes.
That's fucking hilarious. But look, I mean, and it's funny because like Lord Kitchener, like we would be his age, like like that would be us, and we're like, let's put on Cameo. So I guess it's not that crazy, but it is just funny. Like, it's just a funny thing. So while they're down in the scene from the movie ATL, Benji's having a good time. He sees a young girl his age. And so he's like, okay, love interest. I peeped this. Okay, I like it. And Izzy is just kind of watching, and he runs into the dude that he works with. And it's really funny because if you have the subtitles on while they're having a conversation, it has like the lyrics to this song, and it just keeps saying, "Fam, I got these bitches on lock though," like over and over again, every few seconds. It's hilarious. So yeah, they're basically talking about like, like, look, I know the guy's like, look, I know you saw who died, and I know you went down to the chapel, like that's a kind of a major deal, like that's her son, like I know who she is to you, like the fuck is going on? He's like, nothing's going on. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, all right, but like something's going on. Like, this shit is weird. Right. He's like, yeah, you just rolling around with a kid now? That's a weird statement to make to another grown adult, but yeah, it's a bit weird. So yeah, that scene ends, and we see Benji hanging out with the local hooligans, and they're all having breakfast because it's Britain. For some reason, these motherfuckers put Nutella on pancakes.
Yeah, and he's like, Izzy fucking ditches him, yo.
Yeah, Izzy just left the club.
He ditches him, yo. Like, and this is the first of like 3, adopt and dash.
Adopt and dash.
Like, he fucking dished him, yo. That's why he went back to the kids to get the electric slide on.
And that one kid was like a real friend wouldn't have left you by yourself.
And yo, I thought this nigga was gonna see. I thought this nigga was manipulating this kid, yo. Like, real friend wouldn't have done that. How about you try these drugs?
Yeah. He's like, he becomes a snake man.
Right. Yeah, right.
You know,
because we're their kids.
He made sure that Benji had a place to sleep. It had food. It had new clothes, or new-ish clothes, I guess, or clothes that probably weren't
a change of clothes. A change of clothes.
Yeah, change of clothes. And here's Izzy, just like, let me take you to the club.
Like, I'm hungry, sir. Now we're going to the club, nigga. Like, all right. I did appreciate when Benji is telling them that, like, Izzy left him. The one woman says, "quote, a fucking herb," like yeah. So one of the guys basically is like, "Listen, like if you're gonna roll with us, like I'm gonna give you this bike, like that you know how to ride a bike," and he's like a dirt bike type of thing, and he gives him one. Right, like these guys are actually kind of looking out for him. Like you're actually.
That's what I'm saying, yo.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I wanted him to stay with this found family, yo. I really did.
And when Izzy finds the bike, he returns it. And he was like, "Nah, get the fuck out of here! Like you're not giving this kid this bike." And like they, before that, you kind of see that him, riding out with them and everything else. So they're all doing like tricks and shit like that on regular bikes and stuff. And it's just kind of fun. Like these kids are sort of wayward and everything else. But again, they are a found family. So they are trying to make something of their lives. Like none of these kids are doing anything that we're being shown that's particularly bad. Now they are doing the sort of the like Robin Hood type of shit, stealing from the richer parts of London to bring food and stuff like that. But they're literally stealing food, right? Like John Spartan had a whole thing about this. If the people are stealing food, they're not being the bad guys here, right? Because they're starving.
Right.
Demolition Man could teach us a lot.
I appreciate the Demolition Man reference.
I knew that you would. It was for you. So yeah, Izzy returns the bike to the local hooligans, and he's like, "Yeah, get the fuck out of here with that bullshit."
Not before Izzy wakes up at his best friend's, not even his best friend, at his like co-worker's house, and he's like, "Oh shit, you got a daughter? Like I didn't know that." Like just reinforcing the fact that Izzy is a loner. And I'm sure Izzy has his reasons for being a loner, but the movie doesn't show us why.
Right.
They briefly tell us. So I don't have any type of emotional attachment or sympathy for Izzy, right? He just comes off as a dick. And look, I get it. Some people are just fucking dicks, right? Some people are just dicks and they got their own stuff to deal with. I get it. But if we're going to focus this story on these two characters, like I want to know more about each of them. Not just like I know a lot about Benji, and Benji is the best character in this story. He's the lead character in this story as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
But I feel like Izzy's kind of a minor antagonist.
Minor antagonist.
I think I feel like you.
Well, he's a direct contrast to part of what the movie represents, which is community. I mean, even just from the way that they alert each other by the bang of the pans that hey that the cops are coming. We never see Izzy take part in that one time, and he's been there for a while, so he's probably someone that's just like, okay, I'm going to rely on them because I know they're going to do the work. But it's kind of like what Jay, what you mentioned, what the kitchen says. They can't be we unless we become I. But he is that I. He is that someone that that doesn't want to vote, but wants to take advantage of everything, of all the work of people who do what they can to make society palatable for everybody. And he's that one person that's just like, no, I'll take the benefits, but I won't put any work to make sure that the society continues to thrive.
So there is a very famous internet quote that I think sums this up, right? This idea of you rely on a system that you don't want to be a part of, but you survive because that system is still in place, right? Because that's basically Izzy's position. It says, quote, "Libertarians are like house cats, absolutely convinced of their fierce independence while utterly dependent on a system they don't appreciate or understand." Right? And that's absolutely true. One, that's perfect about libertarians. But that is kind of what he is, right? He benefits from this system of community that is ultimately looking out for everybody, right? You're banging on the pots and pans. He's like, "Oh shit, the cops are coming." He runs into his apartment to stay safe, but he does not participate. He doesn't give a one-to-one, right? Like him taking the long shower in the beginning. I have to imagine they have very limited water or very limited heated water.
They even say it in the beginning. They say it like they shut the water off on the east or west wing. So if you got to take a shower, get in and get out. And this motherfucker is luxuriating in this fucking shower, washing his very virtually non-existent hair. Like, what the fuck, nigga? Piss, tits, and ass and get going.
Yeah, you live in the slums.
Wow.
Everybody smells. It's all right.
Yeah.
Let's get the important parts and buzz off. But but that idea of he has this level of like fierce independence. I don't need anybody. I don't rely on anybody. Bro, you do. Like, that's what society is. You do benefit by these other things undergirding your life. And yes, he eventually goes, oh, right. I get it now. I see what this is, right? But that's very later into the story.
Again,
But
going
even
back
then-
going back to Tiara's point about, like, because this is what science fiction does, right? Like, it's supposed to reflect on like life now. And going back to Tiara's point, yeah, man, this is what a fucking living in a society is. So all you people that don't want to like vote or don't want to contribute, even in the smallest of ways, you're a drain on society.
Yeah, you're not being independent. You're just being a drain.
Right. You're not being a free thinker. You're not being we live in the system that we live in. If you want to change it, fine. I get it. Do what you need to do to change it. But you can play the game while trying to circumvent the rules at the same time. Or you can play the game and play it in a way that you can get what you need if you just have a little bit of forethought. But you got to work with people. You got to, because we live in this society. Like, I don't understand it. Let's just get Jill Stein in and she'll change everything. No, she won't.
She can't.
She won't. She can't.
I wrote in Harambe.
Can't.
I wrote in Harambe because it's a joke.
Cool, bro.
But I mean, but for Izzy to have this attitude and come into this child's life the way he did, because he didn't have to keep looking out for Benji, even though he knows that's his son. Like, you could have just gone on to your fancy little apartment and left that boy alone, because that boy, even if the vigilantes aren't necessarily the best crew and probably would have ended up getting murdered just because they stand up to the police state, at least he would have had a group of people who would have looked out for him, and instead of like wondering, is he going to be around for me, or is he just going to literally disappear?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Like this idea of like, I'm going to show up for this kid, but you're doing like the bare minimum actually does more damage than you not showing up, right? Like, it's like parenting based on what you think is a good idea versus what is a good idea for the child, and that's kind of what he's doing. He's like, I mean, I guess if I just stay in here and go like, don't ride on a motorcycle and don't hang out with those kids and then just fuck off on all the other stuff, I've done a great job. Like, but you haven't, right? Because
you can't play with people's emotions like that, especially children. Children need discipline and structure. And so you can't just come in and out and in and out and expect that, because it just makes me mad, man. Because I've seen instances of young boys mainly who just want a dad, or somebody to tell them what to do, right? Somebody to help them like grow up. Because we place all these pressures on young boys to hurry up and be men, but ain't no man teaching them. Yeah. And it just makes me mad, dude.
Or I would even argue no one is teaching them. Not whether it's a man or a woman, no one is teaching them, right? Like,
right.
That exists too.
But I'm sorry, go ahead, Jay.
No, I mean, I guess ultimately my point is Izzy's character is a perfect example, as much of a dick as he is a perfect example of like a I don't want to say a part-time dad, because that's not accurate. Like a dad who just kind of shows up every once in a while, like, you know what I mean? And then goes, well, let me tell you what it's like, and you're not allowed to do this. Like, nigga, you ain't been here in like 6 months. What the fuck are you talking about? Right? Like, that type of dad. And that ultimately does more damage to your relationship. And ultimately in the movie, he realizes he cannot show up like that. He has to show up full time and for real, and then you can have this real relationship with this kid. But while you're doing this sort of half in, half out thing, you are not taking care of what the point of the movie is. You are not taking care of your community, because your community can be tens of thousands of people in the kitchen. It can also be a community of two, right? And so that is kind of the point, is this sort of macro and micro look at what community is and how you show up for it. So, yeah, go ahead, Tiara.
But also, like, going to like parenting, like part of a parent's role is to protect your child's innocence. And in a world like this, where you don't have the luxury of innocence, and I especially that's probably especially true for the boys in that society. I mean, like, looking at the activists as an example, those kids are probably what, late teens, early 20s, maybe, and probably in that society they'll probably be lucky to see 25 or 30. But look at the coworker and how he treats his daughter. He knows what kind of world they live in. Right. She even sees what kind of world they live in, but she doesn't fully understand yet, because he's been able to keep this shield of like, no, the world. Hey, I'm your dad. We're gonna have some fun cereal. Get Uncle Izzy this, and like the way he talks to her in this playful manner, when he could have easily made the choice to harden her up to prepare her for the world that's outside. But even in the face of police raids, he doesn't do that. I mean, he takes her away after a while, but like he makes the active choice to treat her like a child and still be present despite where they live.
Yeah, look, that's a great point. Hardening your kids young, people think that it is a good thing. It's not. It's not. It doesn't mean you make your kids naive, right? That's not what I mean. But hardening your kids to the world at like 4 and 5 years old, you see people do that. I'm like, they're babies, you know. They're babies.
They're gonna grow up. They're gonna have to, if they're lucky, they will grow up and see the world for what it is. But you want them to be able to. I don't believe in being all super pessimistic about the world. You have to still maintain this level of optimism. And if you raise your kids right, hopefully they'll go into the world with some sort of level headedness instead of just being angry at the world, almost like Izzy is. And also, in a way, the path that Benji would be on, honestly, regardless of which group he was part of, whether he's with his dad or whether he was with that activist, Benji was kind of on that path.
Yeah, he was. And it's interesting that later in the movie, I mean, we're kind of jumping around now, but like later in the movie, when he realizes, when it is admitted to him, like, who Izzy is to him, who's his father, and which you could see coming a million miles away. But when all of that is kind of laid bare, or it has become very obvious, or when Benji says, hey, my mom said that my dad lived in the kitchen, worked at the place that you work, this sort of thing, and he lets him know, like, look, I know who you are. When all of that is laid out, it's when Benji can relax. Like, once all of that stuff is out there and he feels secure, then he's able to relax. And not until then. No matter how much you take the bike away from him or move him away from these other kids or give him the graveled fucking voice and all that, none of that shit matters until kids feel safe. Is the only time that they can fucking prosper. Like, that's just this reality, right? So it is an interesting story, right? One of the things I found really funny is, like, one of the good light moments of this movie, which is where we are right now, is the haircut scene. Micah, I don't know how you feel about this, but I think it's very cool that in the future they'll just do create a character technology, so you can test out haircuts, which I thought was really cool.
Now, I don't know how they're gonna add hair to you, but it's a cool idea.
Yeah, that's true. Like, that's cool, but I don't have the hair for that haircut. Like, all right, come back in a couple of weeks. But yeah, I just thought that was funny. It's just like a create a character scenario. But so then we see they're starting to have real bonding, right? And you're starting to see Izzy become lighter, Benji become more receptive to him and become lighter too. There is true power in those relationships between a father and their child. when you can let your guard down. There's one of the worst things in my personal opinion that you can do with your kid, and I can only speak as a father, is never let your guard down around your kids. And like, I can never be silly around my kids. That is the worst type of fucking parenting, dude. You're supposed to be an idiot for your kids and have fun and stuff like that. That's who you're supposed to be. But you're also supposed to protect them and teach them the world and stuff like that. Let your guard down. It's okay. You're supposed, if you can't let your guard down with your kids, who the fuck can you let your guard down with?
One of the hardest things to realize, I think, as you're growing up is to remember that your parents are human beings too.
Yes.
And part of that, and I know we probably all have like different experiences where we've had people in our family be like that hardened. You only know them as like the hardened person, but you never got to see like them as a complete person.
Yeah.
But that is
my biological father's like that. Yeah. I know stories of him being one, not actually saying it.
Right. Michael, were you gonna say something?
I forgot.
Okay.
Good job, everybody. So we see a scene where Benji is teaching Izzy how to brush his teeth. Yes, the son is telling his father, you gotta do little circles. You gotta do little circles. And you know, it's a light moment because Izzy like then puts toothpaste on his head, like, shut the fuck up, get out of here. But later on you see Izzy is brushing his teeth like that, like, she might be kind of correct, considering I live in a homeless shelter of sorts. And, you know, maybe this kid knows what he's talking about. So then we see Izzy go to set up his apartment that he's been the Buena Vista apartment, and he's inquiring about changing his single occupancy to a double occupancy. And the computer is a dick because it's like, I'm sorry, what did you want to do? He's like, double occupancy, and it's like, could you say it a little louder? You speak up. And then he says it louder, like, there's no reason to raise your voice, which tells me the computers in the future are white women.
Yeah.
I was like, yo, he's being mad loud. And she was like, calm it down.
Also, do you have 4 months rent available?
God damn, 4 months rent. Jesus Christ.
2 months rent. I'm like, oof, we gonna be all right? Like, 4 months rent is crazy.
I'll give you a prorated rent when I move in.
Nah, you ain't getting no prorate. Get out of here. trying to move in on the
That's
30th.
What we do out here.
They have prorated rent?
Depending on which day you move in. Yeah.
Try to move in on the 28th. No, look.
I mean, but then you still got to pay the full rent on the 1st. Like a few days later.
That's somebody else's problem. That ain't your problem. All your sugar daddies or some shit. So yeah, 4 months rent is that's a non-starter for me. Can I put my apartment on layaway? Like, what are my options? Like, get out of here.
Afterpay, Klarna.
Yeah, look, I need help.
Upstart.
Look, get me a service. Yeah, like, by the way, I only use Afterpay. Nigga, that's layaway. Knock it off. It's the same thing. Get out of here. So at this point, he's living with Izzy full time, and this is where Benji basically was like, yeah. So my mom said that my dad worked at Life After Life, and drove a motorcycle, and had the following license plate, and had a haircut like yours, and it was exactly your complexion, and lived in the kitchen. You know anything about that? All right. Good night. All right. Good night. And so, like, Izzy's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to get a bigger apartment so that he can bring him along with him. But he's not telling Benji any of this, right? And then he decides, you know what? I'm just going to get my single occupancy apartment, because if I try to do the double occupancy apartment, then I have to get rid of my reservation on mine, and that means I'd have to stay in the kitchen longer. And so he's like, you know what? Nah, not going to do it. That's fucked up.
Mm-hmm. That is. It's not even just that. That's unforgivable. It's what he does after. That is just like,
Yeah,
Like, if
nigga. That
no, I was like, no, I would have been
Wait,
Benji's better
what
than
part of
me.
you? What part are you referring to?
The dinner scene right afterward.
I don't remember what happens then. Go ahead.
So, because Benji, I think, asks him like, "Are you moving to Buena Vita?" And they kind of go a little bit back and forth on that. And Izzy is just like kind of dodging the question, but then they go out to eat, and Benji's like, "Are you going to eat food?" And Izzy's just looking at him, and Izzy's like, "Oh, let me just go do something real quick," and he leaves. He leaves the restaurant and just
Oh,
doesn't come
right,
back.
right, right. Yeah, another adopted dash. That's like a coffee.
And I was just
nigga.
like,
I
like
was
that made
too
me
through,
so
man.
mad.
I
That
was,
made
I
me
was,
so pissed.
I almost turned the fucking movie off, yo.
I was like, this poor boy, this poor adorable ass boy, and you just leave him. I mean, he's just eating a really good meal
Did he pay the check?
and
Who paid the
And
check?
didn't even pay for the
didn't
shit.
pay.
Come on, yo.
Oh, see, that's fucked
And
up.
it was two full plates of food. Clearly, one of them was for Izzy. He didn't touch it. He just got up and left and went to his apartment.
I mean,
Unforgivable.
do you know? Well,
Unforgivable.
now, okay, hold on, before we go after this fictional character that doesn't really matter to our lives.
Whatever.
Let me defend him. Are you aware? Maybe he's aware of something that you're not aware of. Maybe this kid has afterpay. Like, you don't know. He got the money. Like,
I'm like, you couldn't even like just attempt to sneak in the little boy inside your single occupancy. I don't know, maybe
not
kids,
no,
maybe they're
hell no.
like a
Them white
kids
people will
kids
kick
12
your
and under
ass.
special
Nah, them
or
white
whatever.
people
I
kick
don't
you
know.
right out. Nah, they're like, this is a one Negro apartment. You got two in here. Get out of here.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, it's fucked up. It's fucked up. And so, back at the kitchen after while Izzy is enjoying his new luxury apartment, that literally they do fireworks on the glass, like digital fireworks when you arrive, because life is so good. It's just so good being rich.
I would just say that luxury apartment looks like every apartment now, like every standard modern apartment or
Ugh.
studio apartment, and it's just like again so annoying because I was like, this is how far has a standard of living fallen when the stuff that you can see today is like luxurious to like those folks, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it looks sterile, which I'm
Yes.
not a huge fan of. I mean, I like some aspects of that. When I was younger, I thought that was very cool, and then I had sex with a woman, and I realized that you don't need to live like it's like you're a fucking robot. Like, it's fucking weird. Should have earth tones. It's nice. So yeah, it is a weird contrast. But yeah, here's Izzy living his best
That apartment
lower middle
describes
class.
that apartment describes his fucking personality.
Yeah, it's cold. It's super cold and alone. Just nothing's hanging out with anything else. So the cops raid the kitchen again. And I think this is the young girl that Benji likes. She sees her mother get tased and dragged away. She runs away and she goes and bangs on Izzy's old apartment. Benji is in there, and Benji lets her in, and luckily he saves her. In the midst of that, we see or we overhear Lord Kitchener, the guy on the radio, getting beaten by the cops, and he ends up being killed. And over at back at the kitchen, the guys are like, you know what? Like they decide to have back at Life After Life, there's a big funeral in Chapel 6, which happens to be the same chapel that Benji's mom was, her ceremony was as well. And the computer keeps saying like overcapacity. It's too many people in Chapel 6. Izzy goes down there to find out what the fuck's going on, and he sees all these people that he recognizes from the kitchen. And then he sees that Lord Kitchener is the guy who's dead. And it, like, there's gospel music playing and everything else, and it kind of strikes him like, oh right, leaving my community and my responsibilities as a man to defend my son, to defend, where I live and my own people, me giving that up didn't stop this shit from happening, right? You don't get to abdicate your responsibilities and then they just go on pause. The world still turns even though you're not there, right? Kids still grow up even if you're not there. Your community still gets destroyed even if you're not there, right? The idea of I'm going to hold my vote and then put my fingers in my ears and close my eyes and go la, 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 doesn't stop what is going to happen. You can pretend that it doesn't because that is convenient, but it doesn't stop it from happening, right? And so he has this come to Jesus moment, so to speak. Meanwhile, at the kitchen, the dudes on the motorcycles are just like, you know what? Eye for an eye shit. Like, they killed Lord Kitchener.
They're fucking sick of it, man.
Yeah, and look, I get it. So they decide to get on their motorbikes, and they go into the rich part of town, and they just start tearing shit up. They went to like Rodeo Drive or something, whatever it is in Britain, and went out there with some crowbars and started just breaking shit. I get it. What is it? Rioting is the voice of the unheard, right? So they go into apartments. They literally go into the same apartment building that Izzy lives in, and they just start breaking in and just smashing shit. And look, to the movie's credit, they do show like not all the people that are living in these kind of high-rise fancy parts of town, they're not all white, right? There's like there are black folks there too, because it's not about race, it's about class.
It's
right?
the same thing in the slums. I think that's why they made it.
Yes, it's all mixed up.
Yeah.
I appreciated that because it's a very easy message to just be like, it's black people and it's white people and they're enemies. Like, nah, yo, because in reality, it's rich people and then there's poor people. And by the way, these people aren't even that rich. They're probably lower.
They're not
just
living
above.
in the slums poor. Like,
yeah, that's right. They're just living above. Because if Izzy can afford to live in this place, like he's affording to live in this place alone. That other couple, they got one kid and there's two adults, right? So like, that whole idea of like the middle class, the middle class suffers probably in some ways like the worst in a society because everything is like beaten down on them, and poor people and the homeless are just there to be like, you better fucking stay in line or you're gonna end up like these people. And they're like, all right, we'll stay in line. Like that's it's just like a fear buffer, right? So
also.
Go ahead.
Because with the Kitchener, I think they thought that by killing the Kitchener, they would stop whatever type of resistance that they were facing or thought they were going to face in the kitchen. But kind of going back to what he said about it's not just about me, it's about we. The police didn't realize that either. That he is, if anything, like the catalyst. For the community banding together, because he was like the one good thing, the person who kept up the optimism, including like things like marriage, and like that stuck out to me too, because I was like, he's doing a whole Roxy, will you marry him? I'm thinking like that's a way to try to keep some semblance of normalcy in that kind of world, trying to show that love still exists there, because it's a place that could easily become rife with a direct opposite.
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's really interesting. In a lot of ways, you would expect that area, like just sort of stereotypically, it would just be rife with violence and just, anger and people just like, going at each other. But in reality, like as they're walking through the marketplace and everything else, everybody is like smiling and like it's a real community. It's just that they don't have money, and money does not buy happiness. It does not dictate how people behave. But when people, again, if everybody was fending for themselves in that community, or if everyone was fending for themselves in that area and not being an actual community, you do get those things. That's why the United States and other countries around the world have so many problems, because people are quite literally just disconnected from each other, When you are connected to each other, it's hard to be like, fuck you, I don't care if you eat and stuff like that. Like, bro, but I care if you eat. Like, we're working together to make sure we eat. And then it's like, oh, all right, we're in it together. And, not to be a giant socialist D-bag here, but yeah, like we should probably take care of each other. What a crazy idea. So Izzy comes back to the kitchen after, finding out about Lord Kitchener and all that. And he sees Benji, and Benji's like, look, man, move off, like, fuck off. Like, I don't want to talk to you. This shit sucks. I don't want to be around you. And Izzy brings Benji his mom, which is a ridiculous thing to say out loud. He's like, here, I bought you this houseplant that is your mother. Take it. And they plant the plant in a permanent pot together, right? That is the sort of symbol of them actually connecting in a real way, right? And as they're doing that and they're having this, this good father and son moment of like true connection, the go-go music starts again. And the cops are back. They've got, they got shields and batons this time. They've got like a big truck and all this other shit. So shit's getting really serious. Benji and Izzy make it all the way up to his floor, and Izzy is like starting to get beaten up, and Benji gets grabbed by one of the cops, and Izzy like grabs the cop and like kicks the shit out of him basically, and saves his son. Right, again, making true sacrifice to be a part of that community, right, and to be a part of the community of two that is his own family. And they get into the apartment, and they look out the window and they see all these other cops coming, and it's it's getting pretty bad, and people are throwing shit at the cops, and it's pretty great. And then the last moment is Benji and Izzy standing at the window, with Izzy kind of like with his arm around him or on his head or what have you, in this sort of fatherly embrace. And he's like, look, are we like, like what's going to happen to us? And basically Izzy is like, we're going to find out, as the cops are kind of banging on the door, and you hear the cops break through the door. Right. So the thought is, do they fend them off and survive the day in the kitchen, or are they both grabbed and taken out of the kitchen, and then they have to kind of make life work outside of the kitchen? You don't know. So that's up for you to speculate. But the larger point is their community of two is solidified. And, we didn't mention this, but Izzy makes mention when he's talking to his coworker earlier in the movie during their smoke break. The coworker says, oh, they're going to try to come and get the kitchen, and they're never going to take the kitchen. And Izzy's like, no, they're going to. They are going to get the kitchen. They're going to get people out of there. Like, it's inevitable. So, you can read that as however you want to, imagine an ending. Mm-hmm. So, there you go.
Yeah.
Any parting words?
I really like it.
I do like the scene where, the residents ambush a couple of cops. Not a couple, like a group of them. Like they do like a pincer move on them, and then they just start raining fucking bottles and shit down on them. And I'm like, fuck yeah, man. Like, I want more of this.
Yeah, I'm into that.
I thought it was an interesting choice to actually show the cops' faces for the first time in like one of those scenes. Because we hadn't seen like their eyes, like because the cops are just like, they're just basically like all black, like you don't see their faces, but in that scene you see like their actual humanity. And I think that was the symbolize of like, humans do this to other humans, but you can always fight back. They're just people too.
Yeah. And in that moment, they feel fear, right? As they're being ambushed and they're getting rocks and shit on them. They get to feel what it is to be on the other end of that. And yeah, like I recently had someone say to me that it is important to understand the humanity behind the badge,
Mhm.
which is an interesting perspective, and I don't disagree with that. But I also think it is equally as important. And
Yeah, it's
honestly,
a two-way street, man.
right? It's
Right,
more
right.
important,
It's a fucking two-way
right?
street.
I mean,
And it's
Quite frankly,
it's more important.
it's a two-lane highway in one and a one-way in the other because
Yep.
someone chose to
be on
wear
one
that
side.
badge.
Right. You could have stayed on the
So-
other side with everybody else.
Right. Get the fuck out of here, man.
And-
But yeah,
and-
like when they said that to me, I made sure and said, yeah, I think that's true. But I also think
Yeah.
it is equally important to see the humanity behind the people that you serve, right? This person
Right.
being a police officer. So, it was a nice little moment to kind of see their own humanity too.
And these cops, they came randomly and they were indiscriminate about who they were tasing. I mean, it didn't matter if it was. I mean, they even put in the "I can't breathe" moment with
Benji.
with Benji. I mean, like, it didn't matter if it was man, woman, child, elder, young, whatever. They were just like, "Hey, we are messing up some poor folks today."
Yeah. And they just did not give a shit. And look, it's good to see like cops in these kind of positions, because when it comes to like, especially like tossing poor people or homeless people out of encampments and stuff like that, they don't give a shit. Hey, they've been instructed to do it. And look, if you want to say, hey, this movie seems unrealistic from like a messaging standpoint, understand that there are states that have now made it illegal for homeless people to sleep on the street. Illegal. Like they just like they choose not to go to a hotel on purpose.
There's a lot of like countermeasures that people employ, right? Like putting a bar in the middle of a bench, right? Like that's not so you can have an armrest. That's so people can't sleep on the bench.
Yep.
Right? Like I used to work for a municipality, and it was anti-homeless, like they literally called it like anti-homeless architecture, where you would have like little bollards sticking up so that you couldn't just kind of like lean on the floor or something like that because it would hurt. Right? Like it's wild, man.
Yeah, I
like putting like bird spikes on shit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's really common.
Damn.
But yeah, I think we do the worst damage to ourselves as a society when we do the worst to others that have less. Like I just do. And I get it. Like, somebody would say, "Oh, that's a fucking socialist perspective." Yeah. Okay. And like, what the fuck? Like,
you live in a fucking society, guys.
Yeah. I need to hear the argument for why human beings should be made to sleep on the street, and why it's okay to make it, if they do have to sleep there, why is it okay to make it harder, as if life isn't hard enough? Why add even more cruelty to it? What is the explanation for that?
I would love to know, and I would love to know from a person who says we live in a Christian nation. That's what I would love to know, because like I don't understand how the juxtaposition, of like those two views. Like, it's just crazy.
The thought process is that
can I make it?
You have like you have homeless people sitting in front of a business. People aren't going to want to patron the business. Like that's the excuse that they'll throw out there.
Right.
We need, bollards on the ground so that people don't like sit there. On the one hand, like I understand that logic. That logic, but
then maybe we could do something else about it. Like maybe build homes for homeless people, right? Like I've seen like the ideas of like
homes?
like the ones made out of containers and shit like that, like shipping containers. Yeah. Like you can do those things. We choose not to do them. It's not that we can't do it. We literally choose not to do these things, which is fucked up as a society. We shouldn't be spending money over there. We should be taking care of our own. Hey, you want to take care of our own? Not like that.
Here's a brand new football stadium, guys.
Yeah.
Y'all
So
want
we
money for that?
prioritize what we want to prioritize, and we ignore things that we want to ignore, basically. All right, that is it for episode 267, The Kitchen. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I certainly did. I thought that was very good. It was a good conversation. We will be back next week with a preview episode for episode 268. I feel like this movie's going to be fun. So we already know what the movie is. So I feel like that one's going to be a good time. All right, we will see you guys next time.
See you.
Bye.
You're watching the Black on Black Cinema YouTube channel. Make sure you check out our full reviews of Black movies, past and present. And every other week, we do a preview episode where we talk about a random topic that affects the Black community.